that three-time Gold Glover Christian Walker and the Houston Astros are going to be teammates, agreeing on a deal.
And what a weekend it was for Major League Baseball for many different reasons. But wanted to say good morning to all, and as soon as we are getting close to Christmas, just wanted to say Merry Christmas to all of you, and Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Steve. And how was your weekend, and how was everything going?
Oh man, it's excellent. I hope everything is well with you out there in the Pacific Northwest, and I hope everything is great for all the fans out there in the Seattle area. Good Lord, I miss the Puget Sound area this time of year, so I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And just let you know that I of course, I always still have love for the 206 and all my peeps back in the Seattle area. And we're just hoping that the Seattle Mariners finally get on the board with an offseason acquisition.
But in this past weekend, we heard very shocking news that stolen base king and a man of Mr. Longevity, Rickey Henderson, recently passed away due to pneumonia as of Friday night to Saturday morning. Very shocking, considering that on the very last game of Major League Baseball between the Oakland A's and the Seattle Mariners, Rickey Henderson threw out the ceremonial first pitch. And when we saw him throwing that first pitch, giving a hug to Dan Wilson, catching up with everyone, he looked like he was in very high spirits, high energy. He looked healthy. And as a joke, I would like to say that he could have served as a leadoff hitter for the Mariners or the Oakland A's at that point. So, condolences to you, Mr. Henderson, and I do have a video talking about Rickey Henderson in his honor when he served for the 2000 Mariners. And Mr. Steve, do you got any memories of watching the great Rickey Henderson?
Of course, and was that the official reason that his family put out that it was pneumonia? Because I know that when it was released, they hadn't released his cause of death yet. I was hoping that it was anything but drug addiction. I was hoping that wasn't going to be the case. But either way, like I remember when I was a kid, and believe it or not, I was a big fan of those late '80s Oakland A's teams. With Rickey,
Mark McGwire,
Jose Canseco, Mike Gallego, Terry Steinbach, Carney Lansford,
Dave Stewart,
Storm Davis,
Dennis Eckersley,
Dave Burba. So Rickey Henderson to me was one of my favorite players. I wouldn't say he was my favorite because junior. But that being said, dude, one of the things that always made me so what really always pissed me off about Rickey Henderson is every single time he got, not only did Rickey have the ability to combine speed with power, but he was almost that perfect leadoff hitter where he was one of those guys who were, I don't know if you remember Tony Phillips from back in the day. He was one of those guys that always seemed to get on base against the Mariners all the time, right?
California Angels, 1995.
Yeah, he was. But he was one of those guys. No matter how you pitched him, not only was he patient, but he just knew exactly. He was like almost like the first version of Vlad Guerrero, the original Vlad Guerrero. He was a good bat ball hitter, right? Like you couldn't pitch around him. You couldn't hang him a stake out of the over the middle of the plate because he always made you pay. But if you walked him, he was an automatic stolen base. Like the dude was just. I'd like to call him sandpaper because that's what he is, man. He was just that dude that was always rough. And he was a Swiss Army knife, man. The dude had so many different ways that he was going to kill you. And I remember when he went to Toronto, and I thought that was also he always had a knack of finding the best possible spots to land. But yeah, he was excellent, man. And I remember, the year 2000. And it was interesting when we signed him because we didn't have a left fielder to be in the 2000 season. And I remember when we signed him. And at first I was skeptical because I think at one point he was playing for the Long Island Ducks. Like he didn't want to quit baseball, so he went to the indie route, and then all of a sudden he gets picked up. And by the time he got to the Mariners, obviously he was well past his prime. But that being said, man, there were times when he was like, I would go down to Safeco Field and just, I would pay the $10 to sit in center field. And there were times where you could see glimpses of what made Rickey great. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where you want to go down and catch a glimpse of greatness, because it wasn't every game, man, but every so often Rickey would do the things that made him Rickey. And I was fortunate enough to be able to watch him play before he hung it up. And I'm grateful that I was able to see it, him wearing a Mariner uniform. But I want to send his family all my condolences, and I hope they're doing well in their time of grieving. And I wish his family nothing but the best. And I was saddened when I woke up to hear the news that Rickey had passed away. It was sad because he was one of the baseball stars of my childhood, and he was awesome. And it happened a little too soon, man. I think he was 65 years old. Yeah, but I remember Rickey from the 1980, I want to say the 1988 World Series and the 1989 World Series. And then I vividly remember his 1992 ALCS in a series lost to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think he was still with the A's, but he absolutely ripped up the Blue Jays in a losing series. But he went absolutely ballistic in that series as well too. The dude had just a knack of showing up at all the right times. But I just think that he's gone entirely way too soon.
I absolutely agree. 65 years old, way too soon. He looked like he was still in great shape, and things I remember about Rickey Henderson.
I was going to say we just saw him at the end of the year throwing out the first pitch. Yeah, with Dave Stewart with the A's, and
Dan great. Wilson at the very end too.
You look great.
He looked great, and things that I remembered was, I remember when I first went into Safeco Field, and one of the first things I saw was Rickey Henderson. I was like, "Hey, who's Rickey Henderson?" I remember my grandpa telling me, he was like, "Hey, we just got Rickey Henderson." I'm like, "Who's Rickey Henderson?" When I saw him, he's like, he's known for stealing bases. He's ripped, even though he's old, but he was still effective, and was a huge.
40 when we got him. I think
he was around that, yeah. I think he was actually 42, but he was effective. Like, his numbers didn't really show. Like, what really stood out his numbers though was he had a 362 on base percentage and 36 stolen bases total. So he was still very effective for the team. Something that stood out though, and it was in the American League Championship Series, I noticed that Rickey Henderson only played in 3 of the 6 games. And when the Mariners played Rickey Henderson, they were 2-1. And he was very critical in game 1, where he drove in Mark McLemore with his little short RBI single to when he hit it to Paul O'Neill. And Paul O'Neill looked like he had a play, but luckily with Mark McLemore's legs, he made it home just in time, which arguably led to Alex Rodriguez in the very next inning to hit a home run to basically seal that game. But when the Mariners didn't play Rickey Henderson, they lost the other 3 games. So I'm not saying that Lou Piniella's
the reason, yeah, for sure.
Do you think that's the reason? Do you think if we played Rickey Henderson 6 games, do they go against the Mets and destroy the Mets, which they would have, in my opinion?
No. By the way, Rickey Henderson in 2000 hit 238. He had a 362 OBP, slugged 327 with a 689 OPS, 63 walks, 31 stolen bases in 324 at-bats. Hold on. And that was at the age, I want to say that, that was age 41. Yeah. So he was past the age of 40 by the time he got here. But no, I don't think that, I don't think that's the reason why we lost that series, because he didn't play Rickey Henderson. I think that, listen, man, the Yankees were just...
They're just too much.
They're just too much, man. The Yankees were too much, man. That
Still had
team was
Roger
running
Clemens
off.
dominating.
Yeah, that team was firing on all cylinders, and it had for 3 years by that point. When I think back to that, it's like the Yankees had so many different ways to kill you, and the idea of losing because you didn't play your 41-year-old left fielder. I don't think so, but
Other than the fact the numbers may back it up, but
yeah, you might be right. I don't know.
Not saying, like I said, not the reason, but it can be in the category of didn't help. To the Rickey Henderson family or any friends of Rickey Henderson or anyone close, I wish you all the deep condolences. And Rickey Henderson, while you're up there, remind Babe Ruth that you did break his walk record. So make sure you do that while you're up in the heavens of baseball. Yeah. So have a little bit of fun up there.
And remember, Ty Cobb wants to play that. Ty Cobb wants to play still, but you got to tell him to stick it.
You got to do that.
You got to tell him. Ty Cobb wanted to play, but we hated the son of a bitch when he was alive, so we told him to stick it.
Well, he will make sure to do that. Yeah. Man, now we've got to kick the Mariners' butts because whatever they did, or what did they not do? Because I was going to say, what have they done? But it's more like, what did they not do? They did absolutely virtually nothing except get a backup catcher while they watched their AL West bitter rival Houston Astros get Christian Walker on a pretty good deal that I think 2021 Jerry Dipoto, I think, would have done. Maybe.
Doubt it.
There was supposed to be a trade rumor where the Mariners were going for Josh Naylor. Now, then again, when John Morosi says it, I wouldn't trust the source one bit anyway. He gets traded to Arizona for also a pretty good deal. And then somehow, when the Mariners were saying, we want Carlos Santana, we're going to go get him, they fumbled on that one to the Cleveland Guardians for a 1 year, $12 million. So I guess $12 million was too much for Jerry Dipoto. But either way, it sounded like Jerry Dipoto fumbled on all three of these guys because these were the three specific guys that Mariners were going for to replace their to find something for first base, because it's a clear need that the Mariners do have is a first baseman other than the third base problem that they have. But it makes me question, like, do I criticize John Stanton for his ownership beliefs and philosophies? Of course I do. Absolutely. I think we all should. But now it's making me question Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander, like, are they also the problem too? Because it seems that in the Mariners community, the narrative is it's all ownership. It's all ownership. No one seems to put anything on Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander. But I've been feeling it too. Like, this guy has had close to 9 years. And the only time I gave him a legitimate free pass was after 2018 when he decided to blow it up. We were all like, okay, fine, whatever. Fine, let's do it. But ever since that 2022 playoffs, he's been very complacent and hasn't made any legitimate deals for a hitter. The only deal that he made was two: getting Teoscar Hernandez in trade and extending Julio Rodriguez. Other deals I can't really remember, like Luke Raley and Victor Robles, but I would like to say those were out of pure luck. But aside from that, he hasn't made any legitimate moves to the personnel. Okay, I'm lying to myself. There's also Eugenio Suarez, so I'll give him that.
Right. So I know that it's easy. It's easy to blame John Stanton. But I listen, man, you look at the revenue, you look at the attendance from last year, which was 2.5 million. And you look at the overall revenue, which I believe it was, if I'm looking at it correctly, it was $396 million last year. That ranked them 10th in Major League Baseball when it comes to total team revenue. I refuse to believe that John Stanton was like, we understand that your defensive lineman is filled with holes like Swiss cheese, and you have a hole at third base and you have a hole at first base and left field, right field, whatever the case may be, and you only have $15 million to work with. I refuse to believe that is a hard number. And I can't believe there are fans that are giving Jerry Dipoto a pass. because the reality is this person is the one that's responsible. People can say that it's ownership, and yeah, don't get me wrong, man. John Stanton plays a role into it, but John Stanton is not the one who's responsible for building this roster. John Stanton is just the dude that writes the checks and stays out of the way. Jerry Dipoto is the one that is responsible. He's the ownership representation in the front office, but he is the one that is responsible for this team's lack of competitiveness in free agent. And we already in free agency, and we already know that Jerry Dipoto does not believe in handing out multi-year deals to free agent position players. He has publicly said it. And the reason why he doesn't believe in it goes back to his Angels days when he was forced to sign Albert Pujols when he thought it was a bad idea. And he was saddled with it. And, he has said that, that was one of the biggest things that created a rift between him and RV Marino down in LA. And that he was going to bring this philosophy north to Seattle. This was going to be a draft, develop, and trade team. And for the large portion of his tenure here, that's exactly what the Mariners have been. A draft, develop, and trade team. But since the 2022 postseason, Jerry Dipoto has not been Trader Jerry. He is, at times he has been, but largely this team has been stuck spinning its wheels. And it's funny because I just read somewhere on X today that we could see a reunion with Ty France, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ended up being the case, that Ty France ends up coming back to Seattle. And instead of playing under Scotty Service, he's playing under Dan Wilson, and who knows? Because obviously he got traded to Cincinnati, or ended up in Cincinnati, and ended up having a good second half. But I'm at that point where I'm done. I am done with Jerry Dipoto. Like this is largely, this falls on his shoulders, and the reality is, it's like, okay, cool. So you only have $15 million to work with, understood. But you also have a minor league. You also have a minor league organization that's chock full of prospects. And guess what, man? There are plenty of teams that have plenty of good talent that would be more than willing to take on a top prospect for free. It's all dependent on whether or not you're comfortable making those deals. Who was the Josh Naylor gets traded, and what did he get traded for?
Let's take a look at that transaction.
What did he get traded for?
For right-hander Slade. I can't even say his last name, but that's who it was.
Okay. So the reality is the Cleveland Indians are a team, the Guardians. I still call them Indians. The Guardians are a team that also do not dip their toes into free agency, because that is not their model, right? Cleveland is a team that is all about draft and developing, and they bring him in waves. And I'll tell you what, to get a guy like Josh Naylor, and, you can, if you wanted to get creative with some of the prospects, you would have been able to you would have been able to get Josh Naylor on your team. It's all dependent on the comfortability of the prospects that they were even willing to give up. And what's funny is if Cleveland came up to him and said, "Yeah, but we'll do it straight up for." Let me pull it up real quick.
Well, while you're looking that up, but when I look at the transaction, it only says Slade Sesconi, I think, and he is a guy, when he played for the Diamondbacks, a 6.66 ERA, and somehow the Diamondbacks were able to negotiate that kind of a deal.
If they would have said, "Cool, we'll do this we'll do it, but we want Brian Wu." Let's just say that. Let's just say that was the starting. Knowing full well the Mariners are 100% in and going to chase Roku Sasaki for the rotation, why wouldn't they do that? Brian Wu, who I like, by the way, who I think has got the best fastball movement of any of those five starters. But the problem with Brian Wu is that dude's always hurt. and an ability to get a dude like Josh Naylor into your lineup. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I understand Jerry Dipoto does not want to trade any of his rotation. That's fine, but you were saying the last show we had, like, you are a salesman, right? You said this time and time this last show that he is a salesman. His job is to sell ideas in order to get players to come get players in Mariners uniforms. And that's the thing, is he could have said no, but then you have Emerson Hancock, you have Logan Evans, you have I believe the Mariners just drafted 3 starters this last draft. I think they also have a couple nice bullpen pieces down on the farm, but they also have a plethora of young, very good, young, talented position players as well too. With a Cleveland team that loves to bring in those type of development, those type of players to mold them into Cleveland players. And it was an opportunity to get creative with Cleveland in order to get a dude like Josh Naylor on your team. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed to me that would have been a good fit, but it was a missed opportunity. And I don't understand, like, it's one thing you want to blame ownership. Okay, fine. But that being said, though, ownership didn't make Jerry Dipoto say, well, I guess, the only thing you want is the starting pitcher. I guess we have nothing else to talk about here. And it's like, no. Like, that's on Jerry Dipoto. Like, he's responsible for building this team. And it seems like it's a missed opportunity, right? And then Cleveland turns around and signs Carlos Santana. You know what I mean? So it not only did Jerry miss an opportunity to bring in a guy like Josh Naylor, but then he allowed the other target to slip through his fingers.
The Arizona Diamondbacks. And here was the final trade package. The Diamondbacks got Josh Naylor. Guardians got they acquired Slade, a 6.66 ERA pitcher, and a competitive, quote, balanced round B draft pick. And all they had to do was take on his $6 million. This one I cannot put on ownership either. This is a Jerry issue. Jerry and Justin.
You cannot put this on ownership. You have to put this squarely on the shoulders of Jerry Dipoto. And the question you always have to get back to is, what is the plan? And I told you, I said last show that if they're not going to be active in free agency, that's fine. You have a minor league organization that you have the firepower to get something done. But if you're not going to do that, then make it known that you're going to give the first base position to Ty Locklear.
And second base to Cole Young at this point. Might as well just do that.
Might as well just do that, because if you're like, I don't want to hear excuses anymore. We're going into year 10 now of Jerry Dipoto. He's been here a full decade come 2025. One playoff appearance and we have more excuses than playoff appearances. And I'm sorry, it's funny, like when Christian Walker goes to your division rival on a deal that I don't seem to think is that, I look at that deal and I'm like, that's a reasonable deal for a dude like Christian Walker.
I thought he was going to get more than that too.
Yeah. It's like, what are we trying to do? What are we doing when the Rangers are going to be the Rangers are going to be active as well too. And, the Astros are going to reload. And here are the Mariners. What is the plan? Are we just going to ride this rotation out for another couple years and then eventually trade him because they're not going to re-sign here? What's the plan?
It's certainly not a good plan, especially that whole 54% and doing the fan base a favor. Well, I feel like that I'm not being done a favor one bit. I mean, most of our off season.
And there's going to be fans who say like enough of the 54%. No. It's fair game. It's fair game when we have a dude who's responsible for building this roster and trying to get back to a postseason. And these are the things that continues to happen, right? Where you're not going to pull the trigger on a deal for a guy like Josh Naylor because you don't like what they're asking for and you refuse to negotiate. And then you allow your free agent target to go to the team that you refuse to negotiate with. Like that's embarrassing. That is one. Not only is it embarrassing, but it shows. I almost feel like it shows the lack of depth with Jerry Dipoto. You can, and again, you can blame ownership, but I put this squarely on. I put this squarely on Jerry Dipoto. I actually believe that this is an ego issue at this point. That he believes that the way that he does business and the way that he builds is, he believes that this is the right way. This is the right course of action, and he's going to die on this hill. You know what I mean? Like this has gotten past the point of, whether you're in or you're out on the guide. This is something that we've seen it across sports like over the years. We've seen this type of attitude, and ultimately it does not work out. You know what I mean? Like how much time does Jerry Dipoto need? You know what I mean? How much time does he need for this plan to bear fruit, like come to fruition? How much time does he need? Because he's already had a decade. This is remember Jack Sorensic had a 7-year plan, and he didn't even make it to year 7. He got fired after year 5. You know what I mean? Is this like a 10-year plan? Is this a 20-year plan? Like at the end of the day, what's going to end up happening is our beloved fan base, who wants nothing more than to see this team win a World Series. We're coming up on year 50, and we're the only team left who has not stumbled into a World Series yet. Like, we haven't even had that lucky run.
We haven't even had a Game 7 for an ALCS.
You know what I mean? Like, do you remember the 2007 Colorado Rockies that just got hot and stumbled into a World Series and ended up losing? Like, we haven't even had one of those where, all of a sudden, like in the last month of the season, we caught fire, got into the playoffs, and we find ourselves in a World Series. Like, we haven't even had one of those. There is a history with the Seattle Mariners when it comes to this, and it's called mismanagement. And this franchise has been mismanaged time and time again. The only time it wasn't was under Pat Gillick, and the only reason why we didn't get there is because ownership didn't want to play ball. That was legit. That was the only time this team was not mismanaged, and it was no coincidence that we had 4 straight seasons of 90+ wins. And now we're at the point, we're at a precipice right now where we have an incredibly talented rotation that we have not had ever in the history of this franchise. And it's not just ownership, but we also have a front office exec who just won't play ball because he believes for some reason that having a top 3 minor league organization with no movement, like, that is something to be proud of. There's no movement, but hey, we got a really good minor league organization, and eventually those guys will be ready, and when they're ready, they'll graduate, and all will be well. I don't know what to say, man. I think this is ego, and quite honestly, man, just even talking about it gets me upset because, like, for years we've heard that the Mariners are a sleeping giant, and it's like, well, when is that giant going to wake up?
It may be never. And we go back to the time when Scott Service got fired, which we were like, yes, it was freaking time. Like, it should have happened.
Yeah.
At least after the whole Yordan Alvarez beating up on Robbie Ray.
Yeah, I agree.
But what was more shocking was the fact that not only did Scott Service find that out through Twitter, but Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander were still allowed to have jobs, and the worst part is they said that they are still going to be GMs going forward, which is still very shocking because we have seen since 2022 that this team has actually regressed. Like, 22 was a whole different. I feel like 2022 was a whole different decade at this point because that team, between this team and 2022, they're completely unrecognizable to each other. They completely are. So I guess
all I know is where is that GM at, right? The guy that traded for Eugenio Suarez with the Reds, right? Like, where is that deal, right? We don't have we don't have a Jake Fraley-esque player that, another team would take on. Like, we don't have those type of prospects that we can move for a guy who was an all-star somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, where are those deals at?
I mean, if Jake Fraley got the Mariners Eugenio Suarez, you have to imagine then what would the likes of Colt Emerson, Las Montez, or even Cole Young would get. It's got to at least get the likes of Vlad Guerrero Jr. It would at least get the Blue Jays talking and be like, okay, well, at least to a negotiation table.
Right.
But going back to Stanton, like, I'm also putting this on him for not willing to fire Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander. Like, I know a lot of people out there love Jerry Dipoto, like a lot of other Mariner YouTubers, which I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to give them too much of a hard time. They are willing to defend for the most part. Now, if they correct me if I'm wrong and put me on a short bit, fine, whatever, I'll take it, which they probably won't even give me that attention anyway. But a lot of people still, like you said, defend Jerry Dipoto and give him all that excuse. Well, it was because Jack Zarenzik gave Robinson Cano that big contract, so we had to get off of that. Or Mariners ownership's garbage. Or Mariners futilities in the last something years. Or Mariners are cursed. T-Mobile Park. We can't give this guy excuses anymore.
No.
Because Jerry Dipoto should also know that if T-Mobile Park is allegedly a problem, he should be going for players that are based on, that could actually work in that kind of stadium. Like, that's what Pat Gillick did. He knew and understood that T-Mobile Park was going to be a challenge, and he couldn't get just players that would hit 40 bombs in a Hitters Park stadium. He went for players that were about on base, sacrifice bunts, and run scoring.
You mean John Olerud to play for
John Olerud? Stan Javier, I saw some of his highlights. Yeah. He didn't have to do the big thing, but he would even bunt.
Yeah.
And that advanced runners.
Brett Boone, Mark McLemore, Stan Javier, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like I'm okay with an organizational philosophy of you're not going to sign big contracts. Okay, that's fine. Push that to the side. But you have created a minor league organization that gives you flexibility to make trades, right? You are a draft, develop, and trade team. That's what you publicly said time and time again. Draft, develop, trade. And you have leeway in your minor league organizations. You have flexibility to make a few trades. So where are the Nico Horners of the world? You know what I mean? Like, where are, name a first baseman, Josh Bell, whatever. I'm just throwing that out there, right? Where are the Josh Bells and Nico Horners of the world that can give you a year or two until you develop somebody that can take over the position long term, right? So those are the type of deals that Jerry Dipoto typically has been pretty good at finding. He did it with, he did it with Eugenio Suarez. That was a very plus trade for the Mariners.
Luke Raley was actually a plus trade because that was off of Caballero.
Yeah, I mean, that was typically, these are the type of deals that he's actually pretty solid with. And like, if there's anywhere to give him credit, that's fine. He's been able to unearth those. But, I thought maybe we would probably circle back to Yandy Diaz this offseason. I was thinking Brandon Lau maybe, and I think Lau just got traded to the Rangers. Or it was Nathaniel Lowe or Brandon Lowe.
Nathaniel Lowe got traded to the Nationals.
Yeah. Nationals, okay, sorry. But that being said, I thought I read somewhere that maybe it was Brandon Lau got traded to the Rangers. I can't remember anyway.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, but
he's still on the Rays.
Yeah, but those are the type of deals that Jerry Dipoto is very good at doing because he understands that the teams that he deals with will take prospects. You know what I mean? Like, they understand, right? The idea to get Luke Raley for a dude like Jose Caballero was an absolutely beautiful trade. So it's not like it's not like Jerry Dipoto is useless, but if you are a guy who is draft, develop, and trade, and you're not trading, and you're measuring, like, that's the thing. It's like at this point I don't give a shit about the minor league organization. I don't care that We have guys that are going to be in Seattle in 2028, 2029. I care about 2025. I cared about 2024 and I cared about 2025. Right? You also have to be responsible for the here and now. So that means you have to have the responsibility to fill holes with competent major league talent. So yeah, Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Josh Bell, Nico Horner, guys that are not, top flight names. How about the dude with the Mets, the second baseman for the Mets?
I'll look him up.
Man, what's his name?
Jeff McNeil.
There you go, Jeff McNeil. Guys that are just solid. You know what I mean? Like they're not superstar names, but they're productive, solid, contributing players. Guys that you need to plug around Julio Rodriguez and Randy Rosarena. Like you have to put competent on-base players around those guys in order for them to be effectively to do their jobs, right? Is this going to be a situation where, we're going to, I have a feeling where this is going to be a type of season where, Julio's going to be batting third and we're going to see strikeout. You know what I mean? We're going to see these type of situations where the Mariners can't get anything going for 5 innings. Right now, it's hard, man. It's hard watching your division rivals get better. And
Sacramento A's are getting better.
And the only thing that we are hearing out of Seattle is nothing. We're not hearing anything out of Seattle's front office. And the only thing we're hearing is excuses by, some of our fan base who thinks that, patience is what's needed. Never mind the fact that we've already, we're going into year 10 of Dipoto. I don't know, man. I firmly believe that if the Mariners get off to a slow start, and I have every reason to believe that's going to happen because the Mariners under Dipoto have not been fast starters, if they're out of it by Memorial Day, that's going to be it for Dipoto.
That's the thing.
I believe he's on the hot seat, and if this is a situation where he's done by, if the Mariners are in last place come Memorial Day, that's it. That's it.
I think here's my thing. As much as I would love to see that happen, the thing is, it's why not now? Why didn't they just do it in August when they fired Scott Servais?
Yeah.
What's the point of wasting an entire offseason thinking that Jerry Dipoto could actually do anything solid?
Because I think he gave them the extension through 2025. And so they don't want to fire somebody and have to, I really do believe that, if they gave him the extension for 2025, and so to fire him, they have to pay him the full year's salary, just like any player. And I would like to think that John Stanton probably is if I'm going to fire you, it's going to be towards the tail end of your contract. If it's bad at the end of May or June, then he gets the axe. That's fine because there's only 3 months left in the season, and that's it. You know what I mean? That's it. I think it should. I think it should have easily been last August. But
if that's the message that John Stanton may have given Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander, then that you would think that would be Jerry Dipoto having a nothing to lose mentality, and I got to make these big moves to keep my job. Let's say we get Christian Walker, Josh Naylor, Carlos Santana, even at least make those kind of moves, and maybe at least knock the Blue Jays and go, what is it going to take to get Vlad Guerrero Jr.? Go to Tampa. What's it going to take to get Yandy Diaz? Or even talk to Scott Boras saying, well, hey, no one's signing Pete Alonso. Nobody's signing Alex Bregman. Let's work a deal.
I think it's this. I think, number one, that he's not going to operate from desperation. Right. So look at what he's built with the Mariners as far as organizational depth. Okay. So if he's going to get fired, he's going to leave this team in a better place than when he got it. At least that's the hope, right? So if he's going to go down, he's going to go down doing it his way. I thought that would be the case, right? Where it's like, knowing you're coming into a lame duck season and you're hot, your seat is absolutely hot. Like he was going to have one of the best off seasons of his career. Now, does that mean desperation where you're going to trade 8 prospects for a dude like Vlad Jr.? Well, maybe not, but at least be active. And again, it's like, doing what you did back in going into the 2022 season, trading for a couple all-stars. You know what I mean? A guy like, in the same class as a Eugenio Suarez. So is that Nico Horner? Is that McNeil? Is that, you get what I'm saying? Like not necessarily, type A free agent type of players, but solid producers that have all-star nods on their resume. That's what I was expecting. Filling it in, not hoping things stick to the wall like Polanco or,
Colton Wong
taking a flyer on a broken Mitch Haniger. You know what I mean? Or getting an over the hill Mitch Garver. But at least trying to get somebody that's in that 28 to 30 range, who doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires, who's a solid contributor, and it's going to cost you something, but it's not going to cost you the farm. You know what I mean? Like the Eugenio Suarez's of the world, or the Teoscar Hernandez's of the world, guys that are just solid contributors, good clubhouse guys, and who can give you 140 games a year. Like that's what I was expecting, and we're not getting that. Like, would you be surprised if they ended up bringing Justin Turner back at this point?
Actually, I won't be surprised if the Mariners fumble on that. They'll find a way to fumble on that too. Like
it's going to be hard fumbling a 1-year, $3 million deal.
They'll probably even fumble on getting Ty France. And at this point, within the next month, I think fans are going to be begging for Ty France to come back. But one hand, though, and we might as well get to the internalizing part. I mean, Ty France, if that's like the last man on earth kind of thing, I would be up for it because I would like to see what Ty France would do with 2 new hitting coaches, Edgar Martinez and Kevin from Atlanta. I'd be curious about that. Now, is it possible that is there a
hitting coach? That's the hitting coach, Kevin from Atlanta. That's his name, Kevin from Atlanta. He sounds like a radio caller at the Softy show.
Okay,
Hi,
fine.
Kevin from Atlanta. Kevin from Atlanta. You're
Kevin Seitzer. Kevin Seitzer.
Rising gas. Kevin Seitzer. I remember Kevin Seitzer. So with here's like I've seen that all over Twitter. Like if push comes to shove and they need a first baseman, they can go get Ty France again. Number one, Ty has to want to come back. That's number one.
Oh yeah, I feel his bridge burned. Maybe.
Yeah, it depends. It depends, right? Like if there are no other offers and he wants a major league deal or at least an opportunity to make a team, there's always the Mariners, right? But that being said, would you rather have Ty Locklear at first base over Ty France at this point, or do you think Ty France with Edgar Martinez and Dan Wilson, not Scott Service?
That's a tough one because then you have to sell the idea that Ty France is like, well, hey, this didn't work out, but if you have a good 1 year here, that'll make you a good free agent. And yeah, you have Ty Locklear on your back pocket.
The way that I look at it is like you can mold Ty Locklear, right? Because Ty France has already been a professional for X amount of years. He's already been a major leaguer. There's one way that he wants to approach hitting, but you have a guy like Ty Locklear who doesn't have that major league experience yet. And you have a guy who, from all estimates, raked in AAA, got a small little cup of coffee at the big leagues last year, didn't do terribly, and now you have Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer and Dan Wilson being able to mold that dude. Like to me, like in the back of my mind, that actually sounds a little bit more exciting of the unknown of Ty Locklear than what we saw of Ty France over the last year and a half.
So that begs the question. If the Mariners can, do you think it's possible that under Kevin Seitzer and Edgar Martinez, then could the Mariners be ready to go with As long as they find some kind of third baseman, and I don't know who that's going to be, but could they still perform under Kevin Seitzer with the Cole Youngs, the young Ryan Bliss, Tyler Locklear? I mean, I don't want to bank on it because you can never guarantee that will work just because you have a good hitting coach. Now, if we had that, quote, offensive coordinator for the Mariners and we were going in with Ryan Bliss, Cole Young, and Ty Locklear, I'd be like, no, just go out and get Christian Walker at that point.
Right. Like, I mean, under Scott Service and Brant Brown, you kind of want to, you probably want, like, that
Christian
veteran.
Walker's,
Yeah,
or like Josh Naylor.
Veteran. You would rather take the veteran approach. But that being said, with this new coaching staff, there's something ragtag Oakland A's about it, right? Where you're giving positions to young players, right? So it's like if you had Colt Young transition to third base in spring training, and Ryan Bliss played second base, and Tyler Locklear was at the first, with J.P. Crawford up the middle. And then your outfield is, Julio, Randy Rosarina, and
Victor Robles.
And then your fourth outfielder is what's his bucket?
Luke Raley.
Luke Raley. Or you could even go first base with Luke Raley. You know what I mean? Like, if you really wanted to go first base, you can go with Luke Raley. So there's something like obscure, renegade Oakland A's baseball about that kind of gets me smiling a little bit. Like, I don't know if it would be good, and there's a very huge curve of it going very badly. But like, at this point, if you know that we're not going to be active in free agency, and he's not going to be willing to trade prospects at this point, then why not? Why not just fill those positions with what you have in house? Make somebody switch a position to play third base.
Make Cole Young do it. He played shortstop.
Yeah.
I mean, Cal Ripken Jr. made that transition to third base. Alex Rodriguez made that transition. So it's not like it's a crazy idea.
Have Cole Young, like we're talking like right now, before we even get to spring training, have him taking grounders at the Mariners spring training complex down in Peoria. Have him work at third base right now. So when spring training hits, we can hit the ground running with Ryan Bliss at second base and then with Luke Raley at first base. And I'll tell you what, that gives Colt Emerson an extra year to kind of refine it as JP's contract is winding down. And there you go.
Felnine Celestine, if that guy can stay healthy, as much as he's been one of the most exciting prospects, he also has heavy injury concerns.
And it gives, I think, Randy Arozarina's got 2 more years left on his deal before he becomes a free agent. And Victor Robles is on a 2-year deal. Still
a 2 to 3 year deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So that gives you enough time until the next Yordan Alvarez makes his major league debut. So you know what? I'll just say this, right? Like, I would rather that happen, because the one thing about this team that you need to understand is there's a high propensity for you to bang your head against the wall, waiting for that news that we signed somebody or that we made a big splashy trade that ultimately will never come. And that all that leaves you is with bruised eyes and a concussion. I would rather this team just give the spots to young guys and those that are ready to play Major League Baseball, and just let them cut their teeth. There's going to be growing pains. Understand that's going to happen, but I'd rather that happen than because at least you know what you have, because they've already been in your minor league organization. So to me, that's that would be the play. There's something fun about that as well too. I'd rather that playing time go to kids, but
especially if Jerry Dipoto stresses on that, so it's like might as well. So don't if what I would be devastated.
And by the way, the minor league organization stays intact for the next GM that inevitably will get hired, because Jerry Dipoto will be gone by Memorial Day. So
as long as Justin Hollander doesn't keep his job too, because I don't trust him either.
No. I mean, I was saying last year that Theo Epstein, give Theo Epstein a call, right? Back up the Brinks truck to a dude like Theo Epstein. He can be the president of baseball operations. He can hire his own GM whether that be, whatever, Joe Madden, whoever the case may be, or call Dave Dombrowski, who's a winner. And he can build this team. But regardless of it is, I would rather Jerry Dipoto give these positions to some of these young players, knowing that he's going to go down with the ship. And inevitably that'll happen by Memorial Day. We can have an interim for the remainder of the 2025 season. There will be no trading deadline because, owners will never give interims the ability to make trades at the deadline. And then we go into the 2025, 2026 offseason with a new GM, because I would probably assume they would hire somebody within the scope of the season. So that's my wish. That's my 2025 wish, that Jerry Dipoto ultimately gets fired, because he's a lame duck.
He is lame duck. And I kind of like how this show, we just went from, man, we got to get Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander out of here. And then when it then went to, well, if Kevin Seitzer and Edgar Martinez can fix the likes of everyone else, then maybe it can work out.
Understand that Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer aren't swinging the stick. That's number one. But also number two, it's like, I would rather take the unknown of a young player cutting his teeth in the major leagues with a dude like Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer and Dan Wilson talking in their ear, because these guys have been in those shoes and they know exactly the mindset of what a young player is thinking and going through, and understanding that these young players want to impress, right? So you're going to be able to teach these guys how to play good baseball, because the problem with bringing in or trading for a veteran player is they know how to play the game poorly already. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like, they can be very good players, but they also can be very, they can also have, idiosyncrasies that sometimes leads them into, hitting slumps that they can't get out of. I'd rather have this core of coaches being able to mold young talent at this point. Like, I'd rather take the unknown with those guys teaching these young kids how to play Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, and look at Dustin Ackley back then, Justin Smoke, all those guys back then. I'm sure, and Nick Franklin, Brad Miller, I'm sure they wished they had coaches like Edgar Martinez and Kevin Seitzer, because that would have made a difference. Because look what happened to at least Justin Smoke when he left for Toronto. He became an all-star. Nearly hit 40 home runs. Michael Saunders, when he left, became an all-star.
Yeah, Brad Miller went on to having had a pretty solid career. Yeah. I mean, look at how many players the Mariners have had who have left, who went on to have successful careers and even win World Series. So,
and a lot of people just say, "Oh, it's because the Mariners are cursed." It's like, no, it's just because Mariners are just incompetent. There's no curse.
Yeah, there's no curse. The Mariners have been mismanaged from day one. And when you go back to the expansion draft in 1976, 1977. If you understand baseball history in Seattle, go back to 1968, okay, before the Pilots made their debut. The biggest problem with the Pilots had was the fact that they were playing in a AAA ballpark and they had no money. What ended up happening was there was a promissory note for $15 million for payroll, to the owner. His name was Dewey Soriano, and he was partnered up with a former owner of the Cleveland Indians. But the promissory note for funds never actually came through, and so what ended up happening was, instead of drafting a young team, because that was the original plan, they were going to draft a very young team, essentially rookies, first, second, third year players, and they were going to build a core and then eventually, build onto that core and have sustainability. But what ended up happening was, because they didn't get that promissory note and they were playing in a crappy stadium, they went for veteran players because they felt like they had to sell tickets to generate revenue like now. And what ended up happening was that team, that 69 Pilots team, was a bunch of has-beens and a bunch of never-will-be's. Guys they took flyers on that were bench players in other organizations that they thought that with playing time they would develop into something better. Of course, that didn't pan out. By the time June 1969 rolled around, the Pilots were done for, and of course, you saw what happened. So the interesting thing happened is Seattle built the kingdom. In the 70s, Seattle built the kingdom, and by the time the draft came along, the Mariners didn't have that problem because they had the kingdom. They didn't have to worry about having to draw revenue right away. They could have played the long game by getting a young team, by nurturing a young Mariners team right from the beginning and putting themselves in a position where 5-6 years down the road, they might get to the playoffs. But they did the exact same thing as the Seattle Pilots. They went for a veteran team with a bunch of has-beens and never-wers. And what ended up happening was, like, by year 3, it backfired. And then, all of a sudden the Mariners started drafting well, like an 80-81. But but with that understanding, from day one, the Mariners have been systematically mismanaged from day one. And then the worst part about it was they went into the 80s with weak ownership. So by the time that guys like Alvin Davis and Mike Moore and Harold Reynolds and some of these young players that the Mariners ended up developing, some of those guys ended up leaving Seattle because they refused to hang on to them. And they just didn't, the Mariners just weren't very good at drafting and developing in the 80s. And everything changed when obviously Ken Griffey Jr. came around. But, they didn't make that organizational shift until 1992. Like, that was really like when Nintendo came in and they made the decision to at least hang on to some of these guys and draft well and put themselves on a good path that the Mariners finally see the postseason. But, this team has systematically been mismanaged from day one, and there's no curse, man.
Curses are excuses.
Yeah, it's a shame. But if John Stanton, I'll just say this, if John Stanton was serious about winning a championship, he would hire the best baseball people in this game. Now, whether that's guys that are saber oriented, whatever the case may be, if he really wanted to win it, he would hire the best baseball people and stay the hell out of the way. Those are the best owners. The best owners that want to win, that hire the best people, that don't make excuses, that are willing to put money into the team. They don't have to put a ton of money into it, but at least enough to stay competitive every single year. And then you see them on the sidelines enjoying the baseball games because they're just fans. Look at the dude in San Diego or in LA or New York. You see them at the stadium all the time watching baseball. They're fans.
George Steinbrenner was my most favorite. Like, you saw him in the press box and you see his expression, like when the Yankees were losing, and then when they finally won, he had that face of, like, he looked like he was going to have a heart attack. And that's the thing I loved about him, though. He had passion, and people can say what they want about those kind of people, like, oh, they're egotistical, they're insane, they tried to say they're bigger than the game. You know what? We need those kind of people, because one thing they have is passion.
If John Stanton was a fan of the Seattle Mariners, how come we never see him at Mariner games?
We never do. We saw him talk to some dude in King 5 going, oh, yeah, I totally understand where Cal Raleigh's coming from. Everything he said was like all fluff.
Paul Silvey. Yeah, and it's like, dude, that's at the end of the day, like, if you claim to be a Mariners fans, how come we never see you at Mariners games? Ever.
Unless unless you have like a Hall of Fame speech for Ichiro.
Right. That's like when there's a ceremony that requires your attendance, you're never there. Ever. Like, we knew that Nintendo. We know that Yamauchi was, Yamauchi did it as a gift to the Pacific Northwest. He wasn't a baseball fan, and he was never there. He refused to come to watch his product. So we knew that he wasn't a baseball fan because he let it be known that he wasn't really a baseball fan. Even when the Mariners played in Japan, he was never there.
At least he was honest about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like John Stanton's like, I've been a lifelong Mariners fan. Have you known me? Have you really been? I never see you there. You live within earshot of T-Mobile Park, and you're never there.
Also, another crazy thing I looked up about John Stanton, he was also part of that Steve Ballmer group that was trying to get Key Arena fixed up, and his John Stanton's name was in it. Where were you then? Where was your contributions? All you did was put your name in a hat. You didn't really do anything with that. So maybe if more people caught on to that, they would have caught the red flags. If I saw that earlier, I probably would have caught the red flags on John Stanton. And honestly, I actually still didn't like him day one.
He's the only reprieve from this is that he's in his 70s, and you're hopefully maybe one of his kids will take over, or maybe he'll sell it within the next 5 years. I don't know, but the reality is, it's like your only hope is that he hires a good baseball. He hires good baseball people and gets the hell out of the way. Jerry Dipoto never has been, never was a good baseball front office. It wasn't with his time with the Diamondbacks. Certainly wasn't. He actually got into feuds in LA, and so far he's been mid in Seattle. That's it. He's been mid.
He has been mid. And the only thing we can really hope for is, at this point, like we all agree, if Jerry Dipoto doesn't make any kind of moves, then I guess we're just going to have to go with the internaling. At least try to sign maybe Ty France to see if it works out. And Paul Sewald, he's still in free agent.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having Paul back. Where we need an anchor in the back end of that rotation. The bullpen. We need an anchor back there. We're not going to get Matt Brash back until at least June. So we currently don't have a closer. I mean, I guess we do, but we really don't. But you get what I'm saying. So I wouldn't mind seeing a rerun with Paul Sewald. I could live. I guess I could be okay with Ty France. But that being said, it's like I'd rather just
roll the dice with Tyrell Locklear.
Yeah, or Luke Rayleigh at first base. Yeah, for sure.
Which is probably most likely going to happen. But the only drawback on Paul Sewald is he has criticized the ownership on record and the organization. So maybe the Mariners aren't even bothering.
Yeah, I would like to see it because I still think there's gas left in that tank. But yeah, you're right. It would be incredibly hard for the Mariner ownership to bring up a dude like that who's already criticized them and save face. They're not going to do it.
Which is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think that's all going to do it. I think we pretty much ran out of things to say, unless the Mariners came up with the move within the last hour or two, which probably didn't happen. Just like last time when I didn't even have time to upload our last show, and I was like, do you think the Mariners are going to make moves by the time I upload this video by tonight? And you're like, nah. And guess what? Nothing even happened.
No. Wasn't it last year, by the way? Wasn't it on Christmas? It was either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day that we got Mitch Carver.
It was Christmas Eve. That was our Christmas present. That was our consolation prize for losing Eugenio Suarez and Jared Kelenic.
So I'm wondering if we're going to see a Christmas present this year.
My prediction is it's going to be a really bad Luis Castillo trade where it's like, yay, we traded Luis Castillo, but then we got garbage prospects and cash.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we save $20 some odd $million, but I'm going to go out far out of left field and say that it's going to be something like, that would be sweet if it was Vlad Jr. That's a Christmas present that they traded 4 top prospects to Toronto. Ty Locklear and Ryan Bliss are part of that package.
I'll take that.
And
Ryan Bliss and Tyler Locklear, and that's all it takes to get Vlad Guerrero Jr.
It's Ryan Bliss, Ty Locklear, and I'm going to say
Luis Castillo,
Laz Montez, and Luis Castillo.
And I guess they cover a part of the Luis Castillo or whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
No, they take it all on.
No, the ownership won't even.
We know Toronto takes on Castillo's remaining contract in full, and we give them a couple top prospects on top, and we get Vlad Jr.
That sounds like a complete pipe dream, unfortunately.
100%. It's not going to happen, but I'm going to go out of left field and say that just because I'm a homer. It is what it is, man. It is what it is.
I guess we'll find out within the next... technically we'll find out within the next 24 to 48 hours if the Mariners either bless us with a Christmas present or they give us a huge lump sum amount of coal, what's probably more likely to happen.
Most likely. Before we go, I just want to wish everybody back home a very Merry Christmas. Every year that I don't spend the holiday time in the Pacific Northwest, I miss it. But that being said, man, everything is great out here in the great state of Michigan. But I do wish you guys back home a very, very Merry Christmas. I wish you a very Merry Christmas yourself, my friend. And I wish you nothing but the best this holiday season. I hope you have a very good new year. And I hope everybody starts 2025 on the right foot. So happy holidays, guys.
Well, I can say this, that by the start of 2025, I may be starting my YouTube channel with this new microphone, which is
which is
a possible clear upgrade over this one, because I've noticed that whenever I'm screaming, whenever the Mariners hit a home run or the Seahawks score a touchdown or interception, whenever I scream or raise my volume, it goes.
Yeah. I gotta get a new microphone myself too. That's on the holiday wish list myself too. So we'll see if I actually spend money on myself. All right.
I know you got to go, but I also wanted to say, if this is our last show of 2024, I also wanted to say thank you for being a huge part of this channel. So many live shows we did together and shows together, inventing about the Mariners. Yeah. And I look forward to working with you 2025 and beyond.
The best shows that we did were when we were watching, covering Mariner games where they were done by the second inning, and we spent the entire broadcast talking about the Sonics. Like, those were the best.
Talking about the Sonics or anything random of note.
Oh, absolutely, right? Because there was no need to talk about the game because the Mariners had lost, and if something happened, we covered it. All that's great, but those were the best because I liked going down. I like going back into the Wayback Machine and talk about some of those good Sonics teams. Those were always fun, but those were my favorite. Those were my favorite broadcasts this year when we were essentially talking about nothing. Those were the best.
They were the best. Well, that will do it. And once again, to you all, Merry Christmas. And have a happy new year. And painfully saying once again, go Mariners.